Hello, welcome to the San Francisco Poetry Open Mic Podcast TV show. My name is Clara Hsu, co-hosting with John Rhodes, and today my guest is Vince Storti. Hi, Vince.
Hi, Clara. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Vince is a community activist in the poetry world, and I still remember he has holiday parties, and he would cook up a storm, and spaghetti and meatball is delicious. And now that you don't live in San Francisco, I don't know if we get to have parties like that.
Perhaps someday, yes.
Vince has one book, and the name of the book is Free Places, Salvage Spaces. And when was this book published? A few years ago.
A few years ago, yes.
Yeah. And he's also the publisher and the editor for North Coast Literary Review. And the last time this was published was in 2008. But what is your current project?
Well, I'm planning to continue with North Coast Literary Review at some uncertain date, and a lot depends on the vision. And I'm working on a variety of writing projects, a novel, short stories, poems, and planning a new book of poems which will be centered on work I've done in 2011.
Okay, that's wonderful. So let's hear Vince read.
I'm going to work on a few poems that I've written in 2011. This first one is Alameda Mail. Walking toward the bus stop, I see an old woman. She is leaning over her mailbox, bent, hunched, and hunting for something within, peering inside, looking for an envelope, a card, or a small box. From the distance, I hear the mailbox lid clang shut. I see her hand is empty. I see how she turns and walks back through the front door. The house is a steep-roofed Victorian, one with a porch swing out front, the walls painted white. I have a feeling about the house, how it would change with the seasons. I imagine another house. There would be ferns, lots of running children. It would have been in those days when she was still young, a child who never thought she'd ever leave her childhood home. Now in this distant land, I listen to crows cawing, flying overhead, and I think what I might say if I ever meet her, and how I'll ask her about the house as a reminder of another time. That spring when Frank Sinatra was on the radio, and the memory of her summer soldiers, the autumn storms and winters that passed so slowly, and the way years fell by so quickly like falling water. Now as I reach the bus stop, I think about what silently endures. The woman walking out the door, her hand reaching toward tomorrow. The children who left her while heading for their own dreams beyond the white Victorian house. And that old woman with her days of waiting, and the next break of daylight, the next opening and shutting of the clanging mailbox door. This is Memoriam, Aunt Ruthie's Flowers. At that grave site where years pressed forward, in slow cadences we were set in the midst of eternity's vow, and the hours drifted by. In that afternoon graveyard, blue-hued with sky and dangled with rays of pale light, it was to go beyond what would bury the living along with the dead. It was how we remembered the lives, who they were. Old Aunt Ruthie, her hands gnarled and her demeanor gruff. Her gnawing laughter and afternoon teas, her arms cradling flowers, her dresses with checked patterns, that necklace she once wore, and then finally her whispered wish to go on. At that gravesite, old moss stones recalled times when Uncle Max was alive, his eyes shining with mischief, his life layered with slight reminders of grief. It was to remember those silences, the secrets and revelations collected. Hear the reminders in stone, those things that would not be mentioned, projects never completed, answers not yet decided. Hear what might not be forgotten, the years of our father's father's father, our mother's mother's mother. It would also be how we were filled with this, the history of what marked us, what pushed us onward beyond tales of freedom, what set us with those memories. Aunt Ruthie's garden, the sight of her cradling flowers just before afternoon tea. This is Bulldozer's Edge. In sandcastle realms, a bulldozer's blade rearranging sand, that edge grinding forth, its gray shovel slowly digging. With bulldozers wedge the push of bodies under, those seashore forms fallen beneath sharp-beaked gulls alive and calling above the dead. In this realm a carpet of stranded jellyfish, a sea lion swollen, now to be shifted, flung crabs stinking to be buried, a cut fluked whale, its carcass to be lifted, returned to the sea, its last swirled songs gone. Now in the air, tiny flies buzzing, looking for a meal, and the dead dune bones flattened, and the shaped driftwood broken, and the sea whips covered, and the shells crunched under, and the jellyfish half buried, and the bulldozer rumbling over. And nearby a laughing couple running, sprinting hand in hand, quickly scampering, racing across a flattened plain and into the dunes, then to disappear. And the beachcomber old and staring, studying the reaching waves, listening to the surf pounding, walking with gray vision, and a glance shifted downward in last chance of sand scanning, looking for pieces of sea-sculpted wood and smooth ocean stones before shrugged departure as evening tides arrive and drift the nighttime surge of sea. In a beachcomber's dream beyond this, there are other seashores, other migrations, beaches where dead gulls remain fallen, where sanded glass is left dull and green, and foam bubbles and opal stones curve between a series of storms, and there is nothing but the wind and tide to move scattered remains, those stranded bodies moving in froth-flinging splashes of waves, in what will set beyond carnage a story, a dedicated collage the wanderer's vision, a show of debris, a collected art. And this is my last piece, Lyrics Dreamt Trail. Napping before midnight slumber, I nodded off under shadows. I dreamt of distant places. I was set in quick inward glimpses. In dreams, there was a blind man. I followed him down a mountain road. He was guided by his tick-tock stick. A bird hopped along and someone called out, "Are you there, Lao Tzu? Is that you?" Then I floated away. I flew, zipping far from that trail. I found myself inside a strange house. I moved through the air. I was flying from room to room. I soared over parapets, gliding over garishly painted faces. Those impatient calls, those voices crying out, saying, "Come down now and leave your flight of fancy." As time edged toward morning, my mind shifted with dawn. I was jarred from sleep by cackling crows. Soon awake, I found my dream wings useless. Rising from the bed, I scanned sun and shadow shaped locations. Up there, a raven's cawing flight, its drifting sailing place, its form disappearing, black against the morning sky.
Thank you, Vince, for your reading. I'd like to read a couple pieces of my own. The first one is titled The Lover. Oh, you mild-mannered one, all you churn up are bubbles. They burst, and you are back to old humdrum who can't hum and doesn't drum. And you, forgetful one, have you spun your head into a dark hole? It sucks, a body of moving limbs turning, 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 turning. No expectation for dreamer floating on a cloud, 9 heavens above, never comes, never goes anywhere near here nor there. But the lover, how he sees and wants and reaches for himself, knocks the world off kilter, sets fire to the famished land. This one is titled Chance. Here, by the sand trail, where the moon is out to sea, let go of me. The thin line of light is the city. I have yet to know your name. Silence slips through the divide. Stay, you say, and I fall under a spell. How many pebbles have we tossed before our eyes meet? If I search the stars, I won't find you, and the sands too numerous to count. The thin line of light, I'll return there when the beclouding sky is dawning. Thank you for listening. I am Clara Hsu, co-hosting with John Rhodes for the San Francisco Poetry Open Mic podcast and TV show, and we want to wish you happy holidays.